There are three universal truths that every species in the Galactic Confederation knows. First, space is vast and mostly empty. Second, power belongs to those who can control the jump points between systems. And third, humans are absolutely, undeniably, and completely insane. I, Commander Vex Lore of the Taxonian Fleet, learned that third truth the hard way. Commander, the human vessel is still refusing our hail, my communications officer Raz reported with a nervous twitch of his secondary antennae. I sighed, my breathing sacs inflating and deflating in what my species considers extreme annoyance. Try again. Remind them that we have 16 warships against their one, whatever that thing is. Technically, sir, my science officer Plick interrupted. It's classified as a retrofitted mining barge according to our scans. Minimal weapons, but unusual energy signatures we cannot identify. Fascinating, I replied, not bothering to hide my sarcasm. A mining barge, against 16 warships. And they are ignoring us? The main view screen showed the human vessel, an ugly, asymmetrical contraption that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts. Which, knowing humans, it probably was. Our majestic Taxonian warships surrounded it in perfect formation, our gleaming hulls reflecting the light of the nearby star. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Sir, Raz suddenly perked up. We are receiving a transmission. Finally. On screen I ordered, straightening my posture and adjusting my command insignia. First impressions matter, even when dealing with primitives. The screen flickered, and a human female appeared. Her skin was dark brown, her head adorned with short, tightly curled black hair. Her expression was amused? That couldn't be right. This is Captain Amara Jackson of the independent vessel Last Laugh, she said, her mouth curving upward at the corners. To what do I owe the pleasure of being surrounded by so many pretty ships? I blinked all four of my eyes in sequence, a sign of confusion in my species. Captain Jackson. I am Commander Vex Lore of the Taxonian Fleet. You are trespassing in Confederation space and approaching a restricted jump point. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. The human's expression didn't change. No, I don't think I will. My crew exchanged glances. This was not the expected response. Perhaps I wasn't clear, I said, leaning forward. This is not a negotiation. You are outnumbered 16-1. Surrender your vessel immediately. Oh, I heard you just fine, Commander Vex. She paused, squinting at something off-screen. Vex Lore, was it? Nice name? Very intimidating. But here's the thing. I'm on a schedule, and this jump point happens to be on my route. The jump point is restricted by Confederation law, I stated firmly. And your vessel is not registered with any recognized faction. Captain Jackson laughed. It was a sound that sent uncomfortable vibrations down my spine ridges. Yeah, that's kind of the point of being independent. Look, I have got a cargo hold full of premium Earth coffee beans that will go stale if I don't make my delivery on time. So how about you and your shiny fleet move aside, and I will send you a complimentary case. It will change your life. I promise. My tactical officer, Grenz, leaned over. Sir, should I prepare the tractor beams? Yes, I hissed. Captain Jackson, this is your final warning. Power down, or we will disable your vessel by force. Force, huh? She nodded thoughtfully, then reached for something off-screen. For a moment I thought she was retrieving a weapon. Instead, she brought a container to her lips and sipped from it. That's good coffee. Sure you don't want some? Target their engines, I ordered Grenz. Disable that vessel. Targeting, sir? The human took another sip, completely unconcerned. You know what your problem is, Commander? You are too uptight. Has anyone ever told you that? Fire, I shouted. The energy pulses from our lead vessels streaked across space, hitting the human ship precisely where its engines should be most vulnerable. The impacts were direct hits, causing the ship to shudder violently. But the engines didn't shut down. In fact, nothing happened. Ah, Captain Jackson said, looking mildly surprised. That tickled a bit. "Mind if I ask what you were trying to do?" "Sir," Grenz reported, his voice trembling. "Our weapons had no effect. Their hull, it's absorbing the energy somehow." "Impossible," I snapped. "Increase power and fire again." "Actually," the human interrupted, "I wouldn't do that if I were you. See, this mining barge has some modifications. The first shot was free, but the second one might make me spill my coffee, and nobody wants that." I ignored her. "All ships concentrate fire on their main hull." My fleet responded immediately, multiple energy beams converging on the human vessel. The space around the ship lit up with brilliant flashes as our weapons discharged. When the energy dissipated, the human ship remained intact. No damage. Not even a scorch mark. But something was happening. The ugly vessel began to glow, the hull pulsing with the same energy we had just fired at it. "What's happening?" I demanded. Plek's eyes widened in alarm. "Sir, they are converting our weapon energy and storing it somehow. The energy levels on that vessel are climbing rapidly." On screen, Captain Jackson sighed dramatically. "I warned you about the coffee." She set down her container and pressed a few controls. "Since you are being so insistent, how about a little demonstration?" A small port opened on the human vessel, revealing what looked like a miniature dish antenna. It swiveled toward our command ship. "Sir, they are targeting us," Gren shouted. "Evasive maneuvers." I ordered, but it was too late. A pulse of energy, our energy, redirected somehow, shot from the human ship and struck our vessel. The impact wasn't destructive, but our systems immediately began to malfunction. Lights flickered, gravity wavered, and most alarmingly, our weapons systems went offline. "What just happened?" I demanded. "Some kind of localized EMP," Plick reported, frantically working at his console. "But selective, it only targeted weapons and shields. Life support and communications are unaffected." Captain Jackson's face reappeared on our screen. "Just a little trick I picked up from some engineers on Europa. Now, about that jump point, I'm going to use it. You are welcome to try and stop me, but I should warn you my next shot won't be as friendly. This is an act of war against the Confederation." I sputtered. "No," she corrected, wagging a finger at the screen. "This is a businesswoman making a delivery. If you want to call it war, that's your choice. But ask yourself, do you really want to be the commander who started a war with humans over coffee beans?" My crew was looking at me now, their expressions a mixture of confusion and fear. The stories about humans were legendary, of course, their inexplicable ability to turn defeat into victory, their baffling technological innovations, their complete disregard for protocol. But I had always assumed they were exaggerated. "Sir," my first officer Malk whispered, "perhaps we should consult with high command before escalating further." Captain Jackson seemed to sense my hesitation. "Tell you what, Commander. I understand you are just doing your job. So am I. Let me pass through the jump point, make my delivery, and on my way back. I will register my ship properly with your Confederation outpost. I will even throw in that case of coffee as a gesture of goodwill. What do you say?" I should have refused. I should have called for reinforcements. I should have maintained the blockade until this human surrendered properly. Instead, I found myself considering her offer. "How do I know you will honor this arrangement?" She placed a hand over her chest. "I swear on the sacred grounds of Brazilian coffee farms." "That's about as serious as an oath gets for humans." "That means nothing to me," I retorted. "Fair enough. How about this? You can have one of your officers accompany me through the jump point. It's a temporary liaison to ensure I keep my word." My crew gasped. No one volunteered. "I will go," Plick said suddenly, surprising everyone including himself. "Plick, are you certain?" I asked. The science officer had always been curious about other species, but this seemed excessive even for him. "I have been studying human culture, sir." This may be an opportunity to gather valuable data. And he lowered his voice, I am curious about this coffee. Captain Jackson clapped her hands together. Excellent. Send your curious friend over, and we will be on our way. You will guarantee his safety? I demanded. Of course. What kind of monster do you think I am? She looked genuinely offended. I don't harm guests on my ship. It's bad for business. After a brief, tense negotiation of terms, we agreed to allow Officer Plick to board the human vessel as our representative. A small shuttle transported him across the void between our ships. The rest of the fleet moved aside, creating a path to the jump point. This isn't surrender, I informed Captain Jackson as we finalized the arrangement. This is a diplomatic solution to avoid unnecessary conflict. Sure, she said with that infuriating smile. Call it whatever makes you happy, Commander. I will take good care of your officer and bring him back with a new appreciation for human culture. As the human ship prepared to depart, Plick established a private channel from the last laugh. And Commander, he reported, his voice a mixture of awe and terror. You wouldn't believe the interior of this vessel. It appears to be held together with something they call duct tape and wishful thinking. And sir, there's only a crew of 3. Captain Jackson, an engineer named Miguel, and I believe the term is teenager, called Zach, who seems to be responsible for communications. 3 crew members? I repeated incredulously. How is that possible? Automation, sir. And, well, I'm not entirely sure some of this technology should work at all, but it does. They have a device in engineering that Miguel swears runs on vibes and occasional percussive maintenance. Before I could demand clarification, Captain Jackson's voice broke into the channel. All right, Commander Vexlor, we are heading out. I will bring your science buddy back in one piece, plus some excellent coffee. Maybe it will help you loosen up a bit. This isn't over, Captain Jackson, I warned. Oh, I hope not, she replied with a wink. You are the most entertaining Taxonian I have met all week. With that, the last laugh accelerated toward the jump point, its patchwork hull somehow holding together despite speeds that should have torn it apart. As I watched the human ship disappear into the jump point, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just experienced my first encounter with humanity's most powerful weapon, was their inexplicable, maddening confidence in the face of overwhelming odds. And somehow, against all logic, against all military doctrine, against 16 warships, they had won without firing a single conventional shot. Logged this incident. I told my first officer, Malk. Classification, humans. Subcategory, completely incomprehensible. And the human captain, sir? Malk asked. Well, how should I classify her? I stared at the now empty jump point where her impossible ship had vanished. She was supposed to surrender, I said quietly. She didn't even flinch. Raz, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. Sir, High Command is requesting a status update. What should I tell them? I considered my options carefully. The truth would make me sound incompetent or delusional. A lie would eventually be discovered when Plick returned with the human. Tell them I decided that we have established first contact with an independent human vessel and initiated a cultural exchange program to improve interspecies relations. Is that accurate, sir? Raz asked hesitantly. It's the version that won't get us all reassigned to patrol the outer void, I replied dryly. And who knows? Maybe this coffee will be worth the humiliation. As my crew scrambled to make the best of our encounter, I couldn't help wondering what other surprises Captain Amara Jackson had in store for us. Something told me this was only the beginning of a very strange relationship between our species. And somewhere beyond the jump point, on a ship that shouldn't work but somehow did, a human was probably laughing at us while sipping her sacred beverage. The worst part? I was starting to think she might have been right about me being too uptight. But I would rather face a supernova than admit that to anyone. 3 rotational cycles had passed since the human vessel last laugh vanished through the jump point with my science officer aboard. 3 cycles of explaining to increasingly skeptical superiors why I had allowed a single human ship to bypass our blockade. 3 cycles of my crew exchanging whispers when they thought I couldn't hear. Commander Vexlor, my first officer Malk, approached cautiously. High Command is demanding another update. I flicked my inner eyelids in annoyance. Tell them the situation remains unchanged. Our diplomatic envoy is still accompanying the human vessel as planned. Sir Malk hesitated, his neck frills pulsing with anxiety. They are beginning to question whether Officer Plick was captured rather than voluntarily sent. Absurd, I muttered, though the same thought had crossed my mind more than once. The human captain gave her word. Her word means nothing in Confederation law, Malk reminded me. Before I could respond, Raz's antennae suddenly shot upright. Commander, jump point activity detected. A vessel is emerging. On screen, I ordered, unconsciously adjusting my posture. The view screen activated just in time to show the last laugh sliding back into normal space. But something was different. The once patchwork hull now gleamed with a peculiar iridescent coating, and several new protrusions dotted its surface. What happened to that ship? I wondered aloud. Sir, Grenz reported from Tactical. The human vessel appears to have been upgraded. Energy signatures are significantly different from our previous scans. Hail them, I commanded. The screen flickered, and Captain Amara Jackson's face appeared. She looked different, more serious. Behind her stood Officer Plick, who appeared physically unharmed but strangely animated. Commander Vexlor, Jackson nodded. We need to talk. Captain Jackson, I replied coolly. I see you have returned, with modifications to your vessel that were not approved by this fleet. Yeah, about that, she said, running a hand through her curly hair. We have got bigger problems than regulatory violations. Your science officer has some information you need to hear. Plick stepped forward, his eyes wide with an emotion I couldn't quite identify. Commander, permission to return to the fleet and provide a full report? Granted, I said. But I want explanations for these unauthorized modifications to the human vessel. Jackson and Plick exchanged glances. Trust me, she said. After you hear what happened on the other side of that jump point, you will be thanking me for these modifications. An hour later, my command staff and I sat in stunned silence as Officer Plick completed his report. So you are claiming, I summarized slowly, that on the other side of the jump point, Captain Jackson discovered a previously unknown species preparing for an invasion of Confederation space? Not claiming, sir. Confirming, Plick insisted. The Void Harvesters, as the local trading outpost calls them. They have already consumed 3 systems beyond the jump point, converting all organic matter into fuel for their hive ships. And you expect me to believe that your ship, I turned to Captain Jackson, who had joined us aboard our command vessel, a mining barge crewed by 3 humans, managed to escape detection and return with this intelligence? 4 humans now, she corrected, nodding toward Plick. Your officer here has gone native. Turns out he's got quite the talent for improvisation under pressure. Very human trait, that. Plick's skin flushed a deeper shade of blue. Captain Jackson's methods are unconventional, sir, but effective. When the Harvester scout ship intercepted us, she convinced them we were advance scouts for a much larger fleet. You bluffed an unknown hostile species? I asked incredulously. Jackson shrugged. Worked on you, didn't it? I ignored the jab. And these modifications to your vessel? Scavenged tech from an abandoned outpost, she explained. The Harvesters left it behind after stripping the colony. My engineer Miguel figured out how to integrate it with our systems. Impossible, Grenz interjected. Even our best technicians would need weeks to integrate unknown alien technology. Your best technicians don't have Miguel, Jackson replied with a hint of pride. Man once built a functioning distillery out of medical equipment and spare conduit during a 3-month mining operation on Europa. This was actually easier. I tapped my claws against the briefing table, considering the implications. Even if I accept this report as accurate, what exactly do you expect the Confederation to do? We cannot mobilize a war fleet based on the word of an unregistered human captain and a single science officer. Actually, Plick said, Pulling a data crystal from his pocket, I recorded everything. Full sensor readings, visual confirmation, communications, intercepts. The harvesters are real, Commander, and they are coming. Their advanced fleet will reach the jump point in approximately 36 hours. The command room erupted in chatter until I slammed my primary appendage on the table. Silence. Click. Transfer all data to our systems for verification. Already verified, Captain Jackson said calmly. Your officer insisted on triple-checking everything before we returned. But sure, knock yourself out with a fourth review. Meanwhile, those harvester ships aren't slowing down. You seem remarkably composed for someone delivering news of an imminent invasion, I observed. For the first time since her return, Jackson's facade of confidence cracked slightly. Trust me, I'm screaming internally. But panic won't stop them. After a tense hour of data analysis, my worst fears were confirmed. Plex recordings showed massive organic mechanical hybrid vessels consuming everything in their path. The sensor readings indicated technology far beyond Confederation capabilities, and the intercepts revealed a hive mind with a singular purpose: consumption and conversion of all available resources. We need to alert High Command immediately, Malk urged. By the time they mobilize a proper response force, the harvesters will be through the jump point and establishing a foothold in our space, Grenz countered. Then we destroy the jump point, I decided. Our fleet carries enough firepower to collapse its structure. Won't work, Jackson interrupted. According to what we learned, the harvesters can force open spatial rifts if necessary. It will slow them down, but not stop them. Plus, you will strand any Confederation citizens still alive on the other side. Then what do you suggest, Captain? I asked, not bothering to hide my frustration, since you seem to have an answer for everything. Not an answer, she corrected. A plan. A terrible, desperate, probably suicidal plan, but it's what we have got. She activated a holographic projector she'd brought from her ship, displaying a schematic of the jump point. The harvesters communicate through quantum-entangled particles embedded in their ships, she explained. Their entire fleet functions as a single organism. Disrupt that communication, and they become disorganized, still dangerous, but not coordinated. And how exactly do we disrupt quantum entanglement across an entire fleet? I asked skeptically. With this, Jackson gestured to another schematic, a device cobbled together from Confederation technology and the alien components she'd salvaged. My engineer calls it a quantum scrambler. A highly technical name, I know. Flick stepped forward. I have reviewed the design, Commander. It's crude but theoretically sound. If placed at the jump point nexus and activated as the harvester fleet begins transition, it could sever their communication network. Then their ships would emerge from the jump point in disarray, Grenz mused, warming to the idea. Vulnerable to conventional attacks. Exactly, Jackson nodded. Your fleet could pick them off before they reorganize. And who would deploy this device? I asked, already suspecting the answer. My ship absorbed enough energy from your attack to power the scrambler, she said simply. We will deliver it. That's a suicide mission, Malk protested. The moment the first harvester ships detect you. They won't, Jackson cut him off. Not if we mask our approach correctly. Besides, the last laugh has a few more tricks up her sleeve that even Officer Plick hasn't seen yet. I studied the human captain carefully. Why would you risk your life and your crew for Confederation space? She was not even a registered citizen. Because the harvesters won't stop with your systems, she replied gravely. And because humans protect trade routes. It's practically a religion for us independent captains. Against my better judgment and several Confederation protocols, I agreed to Jackson's plan. My fleet would position itself in ambush formation around the jump point while the last laugh delivered the quantum scrambler. If successful, we would engage the disoriented harvester ships as they emerged. If unsuccessful, well, no one would be left to court-martial me anyway. As Jackson prepared to return to her vessel, I felt compelled to speak privately with her. Captain Jackson, I began, struggling to find the right words. I misjudged you during our first encounter. Don't sweat it, she replied with a hint of her earlier grin. Happens all the time. We humans cultivate underestimation as a tactical advantage. Nevertheless, I owe you an apology. And I hesitated, my pride warring with pragmatism. I would appreciate any tactical insights you might have regarding the upcoming engagement. Jackson's eyebrows rose in surprise. Well, now, that's unexpected. Commander Vexlor asking a human for advice? What would your superiors say? My superiors aren't here, I replied stiffly. And I am responsible for the survival of my fleet and, potentially, Confederation space itself. Pride seems a poor reason to reject useful information. Fair enough, she nodded approvingly. In that case, my first suggestion is to stop thinking like a Taxonian. Excuse me? Your fleet formations are beautiful, mathematical, perfect, she explained, and perfectly predictable. The harvesters will calculate your attack vectors within seconds of spotting you. Our formations are based on centuries of tactical doctrine, I protested. And they have served you well against enemies that think like you do, Jackson conceded. But the harvesters are different. They are adaptive, innovative. You need to be the same. What followed was a crash course in what Jackson called human tactical chaos theory. It violated every principle I'd learned at the Taxonian Military Academy, yet contained an undeniable logic of its own. By the time we finished, I had reluctantly approved a battle plan that would have my instructors spinning in their burial pods. But for the first time since hearing about the harvesters, I felt something akin to hope. As Jackson turned to leave, she paused. Oh, I almost forgot. She reached into a pocket and handed me a small package. The coffee, I promised. Might help with the next 36 hours. I accepted the package awkwardly. Thank you, Captain. Call me Amara, she said. If we are going to die together, we might as well be on a first-name basis. Vexlor, I offered in return. Though technically that is my first name. She laughed, that strange human sound that still made my spine ridges tingle. See you on the other side, Vexlor. Try not to be too predictable while I'm gone. The next 36 hours passed in a blur of preparation. My fleet dispersed into what Jackson had called a scattered shotgun formation, a deliberately irregular pattern that would make our numbers appear greater than they were. We powered down all non-essential systems to minimize detection, and I even ordered our hull plating reconfigured to create irregular reflection patterns. Meanwhile, the last laugh underwent its own transformation. Using techniques that Officer Plick described as baffling but brilliant, Jackson's engineer coated their hull with a compound that absorbed scan waves rather than reflecting them. The quantum scrambler was mounted in a specially designed launch pod that could be deployed remotely. The commander, Raz, called out suddenly, breaking the tense silence that had fallen over our bridge. Jump point activity detected. Harvester advanced scouts in 3, 2, 1. The view screen showed the jump point flaring with unnatural energy as 3 skeletal ships emerged. They resembled massive rib cages with glowing organs pulsing inside crystalline chambers. Sensor arrays extended from their prows like probing tentacles, sweeping the space around them. All ships maintain communication blackout, I ordered quietly. Let them pass through our formation. The Harvester scouts moved with unsettling grace, their tentacle-like sensors passing within kilometers of our powered-down vessels. I found myself holding breath in my secondary lungs, a childhood habit I thought I'd outgrown. Sir, Grenz whispered, the scouts are continuing on projected vector. They haven't detected us. Or they don't consider us worth reporting, I muttered. Status of the last laugh? Approaching the jump point from Vector 739, Malk reported. Their stealth systems appear to be functioning. The scouts haven't changed course to intercept. On a secondary monitor, I watched the tiny blip that represented Jackson's vessel as it maneuvered toward the jump point. Her approach was anything but direct. The ship spiraled and drifted in what appeared to be random patterns but actually utilized the gravitational eddies around the jump point to mask its propulsion signature. Clever, I admitted grudgingly. Sir. Raz's antennae shot up again, massive energy surge from the jump point. The main harvester fleet is beginning transition. Signal the last laugh, I ordered. It's now or never. Jackson's voice came through, artificially distorted to avoid detection. We see them, Commander. Beginning final approach. Be ready. Once this thing activates, you will have about 90 seconds before they reorganize. Acknowledged, I replied. All ships, prepare to engage on my mark. The jump point expanded unnaturally as the first of the massive Harvester Hive ships began to emerge. It dwarfed the Scouts, its hull a nightmarish blend of organic tissue and metallic structures. Behind it, more shapes were visible, pushing through the spatial distortion. The last laugh is in position, Malk reported tensely. They are deploying the scrambler. A tiny object detached from Jackson's ship, accelerating toward the center of the jump point. As it reached its target, a pulse of energy unlike anything I'd ever seen erupted from the device. The pulse expanded outward, washing over the emerging harvester ships. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The massive vessels shuddered and veered off course, colliding with each other as they emerged from the jump point. The coordinated formation they'd begun to establish collapsed into chaos. Now, I roared. All ships, engage targets according to assigned sectors. My fleet came to life, power surging through previously dormant systems. We struck from all directions simultaneously, our weapons targeting the vulnerable connection points Jackson had identified in the Harvester's hybrid hulls. The first wave of Harvester ships, disoriented and unable to coordinate their defenses, fell quickly to our concentrated fire. But more kept coming through the jump point, and the earlier ones were beginning to adapt, developing individual defensive strategies to compensate for their severed hive connection. Sir, Grenz called out, the last laugh is moving into the jump point itself. What? That's not part of the plan. I switched to a direct channel. Jackson. What are you doing? Her voice came through broken and distorted. Change of plans, Vex lore. Scrambler effect is weakening faster than expected. We need to buy you more time. By doing what exactly? I demanded. Remember how my ship absorbs energy? She replied, a hint of her familiar humor returning despite the circumstances. Well, turns out it works on the jump point's energy too. We are going to overload it from the inside. That's insane, I protested. You will be caught in the collapse. Probably she agreed. But we will take the majority of the Harvester fleet with us, and the collapse will seal this route for at least a year. Should give your Confederation time to prepare proper defenses. I wanted to argue, to order her to withdraw, but the tactical logic was undeniable. Her sacrifice would save billions. Is there no other way? I asked, abandoning protocol. Don't go soft on me now, Commander, she chided. This is the job. Always has been. Officer Pleck's voice joined the transmission. It has been an honor serving with both of you. The Confederation will know of Captain Jackson's bravery. Spare me the eulogy, Jackson retorted. Just make sure they name something impressive after me. Not a space station bathroom or something. As the last laugh vanished completely into the jump point, our sensors detected a massive energy buildup. The Harvester ships still emerging seemed to sense the danger, attempting to reverse course, but it was too late. The jump point contracted violently, then expanded beyond its stable parameters. For a moment it seemed to hang suspended, a tear in the fabric of space. Then it collapsed with a silent flash of light so intense that our view screens automatically darkened to protect our vision. When the light faded, the jump point was gone. So were the Harvester ships still in transit. Those that had already emerged were disorganized and reduced in number, a dangerous but manageable threat. All ships, I ordered, my voice steadier than I felt. Complete the engagement. No survivors. The battle that followed was fierce but decisively in our favor. Without their hive connection and with their numbers reduced, the Harvesters fought individually, deadly, but no match for a coordinated fleet. Hours later, as we secured the last of the wreckage, I stood alone in my ready room, staring at the small package Jackson had given me. Following the included instructions, I prepared the coffee and took an experimental sip. The bitter liquid was shocking at first, then strangely invigorating. I could understand why humans valued it so highly. A chime announced Malk's arrival. "Sir, High Command is requesting a full report on the engagement." "Tell them," I paused, considering my words carefully. "Tell them we encountered an unknown hostile species attempting to invade Confederation space, and that we successfully repelled them with the assistance of an independent human vessel. They will want details about this human involvement," Malk warned. I nodded slowly. "And they will get them. The full truth about how a single human captain who was supposed to surrender to our superior force instead saved us all." "Sir," Malk hesitated, "the official record will note your decision to allow the human vessel through our blockade initially. There could be consequences." "Let there be," I replied, taking another sip of the strange human beverage. "Some principles are worth the risk." 3 months later, I stood at attention as the Confederation Council officially recognized the sacrifice of the Last Laugh and her crew. A memorial was commissioned at Confederation headquarters, and emergency protocols were established for future contact with the Harvesters. As for me, I received a formal reprimand for violating blockade protocols, followed immediately by a promotion for extraordinary tactical innovation in the face of an unprecedented threat. Bureaucracy at its finest. But the true legacy of Amara Jackson and her impossible ship wasn't found in official records or memorials. It was in the subtle changes to Confederation military doctrine, the new emphasis on adaptive tactics, and the growing respect for human ingenuity throughout our ranks. And every morning, as I begin my duty shift with a cup of what has become a surprisingly popular import from Earth, I remember her final transmission before the jump point collapsed. "See? I told you we humans make terrible enemies but excellent friends. Next time, maybe skip the surrender immediately part and go straight to trading. It's so much more civilized." She was supposed to surrender. She saved us instead. And she didn't even flinch.